Hello and welcome to this guitar lesson on Carlo Domeniconi's Koyunbaba. In it we're going to dive into the next section of movement number 3, checking out the right hand patterns you need and the melody notes that you need and where they are. There is a ton in this lesson, so if you're ready, let's dive straight into movement 3 part 2 by Carlo Domeniconi. Welcome to the next part of movement 3 of Koyunbaba. So straight away, the majority of this section that we're going to deal with today has a right hand pattern that does this: AMIP across 4 strings and then AMIP across 3 strings, and it just repeats that. You need even tone. The melody is on the first string, so you do not want to be doing this. No, definitely not. You want nice even tone with a possible slight accent, not digging in, just dropping P, I and M down on the A finger. This here is going to be the most challenging because your thumb is quite a strong digit. So you're really going to have to work on getting that under control and not digging into that string, as you probably have been used to because your thumb has been dealing with bass notes. So I would suggest practicing just open strings. Until you have it. The pattern does change ever so slightly where we get the bass moving across the strings. Which you will see a little bit later on. That is it for the first micro-study. Just practice open strings. Welcome to the next micro-study. Here we're dealing with the left-hand melody. Now, the melody is on string 1 and it starts with an open string. We then have 2nd fret, 1st finger. Third finger on the 4th fret, 5 times, then you're going to back down to 2 for 2. Now you're going to need to laser ahead because you're going to have to shoot up to 7 with the 1st finger for 2, then back down to 4th fret with the 3rd finger for 4, back down to 2 to open, back to 4, back to 2, 4, back to open, and we're going to leave it there. I would suggest, just to get a handle on the melody, practice it on its own at least once. Once you have that, you need to be aware that we're kicking off at bar 40. The pattern is obviously as previously described, but bar 39 you have to be able to transition from this pattern, I, B, A, M, I, into bar 40's new pattern. So you might need to practice bar 39. Couple of times to get that transition. Once you have that, put the 2 hands together, and this really is where the magic happens. Stop there because there we have a left hand melody change to a certain degree. We have a secondary melody coming in. Harking back to movement number 2, I must say. So the challenging bit here is to be able to change that melody note on the second half of the bar when Domeniconi does AM, IP across 3 strings. It's quite a challenge. So I would suggest you just practice those bars that do those changes on their own. So obviously bar 40. This is static. Change. Practice that. Carry on. Practice this. And so forth and so on, so that you really then nail those changes in. However, if you have worked your right hand pattern, you won't find it too challenging to do. Okay, so the next micro study picks up at bar 51. We have a change in right hand pattern here as well, where the right hand now stays static on A, M, I, P across 4 strings. We begin with the melody in the first string. We then introduce second finger on string 2, first finger on string 2, open strings, and then your third finger is going to move to string 3, string 1, back to open strings, low bass note, and then we go back to the original right hand pattern, but with higher fretted notes. So again, I would suggest you practice this. This has been harked back from movement 2, where we get that. From movement 2, so it's just a little hint there of movement 2's melody. Okay, welcome to the next micro study. We are kicking off at bar 55. It is a half bar situation across 2 strings, strings 1 and 2, with third finger on fret 9. We have our original right hand pattern, AMIP 4 strings, AMIP 3 strings, with the melody note again changing out halfway across the bar. So it's third finger down, back to half bar, stay there, third finger back on. Once we've finished that, there is like a little answering phrase here. Your fourth finger is going to have to shift up to fret 11, and your thumb is now going to play strings 6, 5, 4 and 3 in succession. And you're going to take finger 4 off at the end there, and remember it's going to AMIP across 3 strings. So that little bit I would practice on its own. Before we go back to the original idea in this micro study. It's a lovely little sandwich between those 2 ideas. And again, I am not using them, but you can do rest strokes. Until you get to that double stroke on the G string, which I wouldn't suggest. Again, in slow motion, all together, this looks like this. Welcome to the next micro study. The next micro study, we are kicking off at bar 61. Now we left it off here at fret 9. What's going to happen is you're going to need to do a switch, half bar up, pointing directly in so that you can get all the open strings. And then I suggest that you swap to finger 3 on the halfway of this bar, because you're going to be coming up to a 5th fret bar and it's going to be very difficult to do that into a 5th fret bar. So I suggest straight away on 61 half bar there where we start to get those fantastic clashes again. Nothing too difficult with this microstudy. Again, AMIP 4 strings, AMIP 3 strings. I would suggest that you probably need to practice the transition. To get those fingers secure and stable and you know what you're doing. Right, we'll check out the next microstudy. Okay, so the next microstudy, we kick it off at bar 63. We have full bar at 5th fret. Now we've already seen this chord a couple of times in this piece, especially in the first movement, so there shouldn't be anything new here. The only difference is we have a melody in the middle now, with the 3rd finger on, and then the 3rd finger off, off, 3rd finger on. The right hand pattern is one we've already seen as well, so it's going to be AMIP to the 6th string, AMIP to the 5th string, AMIP to the 4th string, and then AMIP to the 3rd string with a double IP on the end there. Obviously taken together with the left hand now, it sounds like this. Welcome to the next microstudy, bar 65. It's the same idea as the previous one, except we have a new melody note. Melody on the 2nd string, finger off on the bar, then we have a 3rd back on, and then we have a 4th finger on string 3. Back to 2nd string, and then we're going to be moving into a new pattern with no bar chord down. Now this one's quite challenging, so I would suggest that you practice this. Just to get used to it. Like that. And then again, the right hand pattern is one we've seen before. AMIP, 6th string, AMIP 5th string, AMIP 4th string, AMIP 3rd string. So there's nothing new there. The challenge comes putting the left hand and the right hand together. So this is what this sounds like. And then we're into the next microstudy. This is quite a challenging section. I would then, once I have those, I would put bar 65 microstudy and bar 64's microstudy together into one big microstudy. Jam the two together, practice that as a section because that is actually going to be quite a bit of a challenge. And remember, bar chords pull back, melody note now is on the 2nd string, so again, right hand fine control. Drop these 3 fingers, P, I, and A, and make sure that the M finger stays up at volume. Alrighty, welcome to the next microstudy. So we have melody on the 2nd string, we're on a 3rd finger, and again it is a pattern we've already seen. AMIP to the 6th string, 5, 4, 3, open strings. Suddenly a new pattern emerging and a new melody voice emerging, and Domeniconi really putting us on our toes. I would literally put from bar 61 to bar 70 together now as one big chunk. There is nothing too difficult about this microstudy other than being able to take your fingers off and making sure that you get that melody note out on the 2nd string. This microstudy sounds like this. Notice, as I was playing the open strings, my left hand moved into position because I know that that is the next note I have to fret. Hi, quick interruption here. Hope you're enjoying the lesson. If you are, consider hitting the like button and maybe even subscribing to the channel. There are a ton of new lessons coming your way, not the least of which the rest of Koyunbaba. Right, that's it. Let's dive straight back into Koyunbaba. Welcome to the next microstudy. So we left it off at bar 70, right on the end of it, going into 71 with a 2nd finger on string 4 at fret 3. Now, you're then going to need to put your 4th finger down on string 1 at fret 4. First finger on fret 2. Second finger onto string 5 at fret 3. Fourth finger back on. And if you notice, the right hand pattern now has switched over. So Domeniconi has done this on purpose. The right hand pattern is AMIP to 3 strings, AMIP to 4. 3, 4. And obviously he starts to interject melodies on strings 5 and then string 6. So you need to keep track of those on top of the AMIP to the 3 to the 4. So whenever the melody note is in the bass has popped up, so we start the melody note on the bass on an F, then a D, then to a C, then to a B flat, then to an open A, and then we have F at the 3rd fret, E, E flat, open D. Okay, so you really need to make sure that that melody in the bass climbs down. Fantastic melody there. And then on the top line, we have this. Lovely ostinato pattern, which sits with the reversed right hand pattern. Until bar 77, where we get a change. Bar 77 is where the bass notes have entered on the F, E, E flat and D, and then the right hand inner voicings change. Being aware of all of these things will really help you nail this last micro study. I suggest you bust it up into 2 beat segments using the bass notes as a guide. Okay, so before we play through this, I'm just going to walk through the fingers nice and slowly. So obviously we have a 2 on the F, 1 on the F sharp, 2 on the C, 1 on the F sharp, leaving that 2 down for as long as possible, 1 on the B flat, 4 on the G sharp. I would suggest using 3 on the F sharp here, open strings, 4, 2, 1, open, 1, 4 on the G sharp, E flat is 1, and then Domeniconi suggests 2 on the F sharp into open. If you can, it might be easier to stretch your 3rd finger out there. So from the E, it's up to you to have a crack at that. Once you've got the fingers down, first finding them, practicing 2 bar chunks, stick it all together into one big micro study, and it should sound a little bit like this. Thank you very much for staying until the end. This has been brought to you by ClassicalGuitarRocks.com. There are a ton of lessons there now on the site. Brauer, Diens, Koshkin, and of course Villa-Lobos. In fact, it's the only place on the internet you can learn the entirety of Villa-Lobos's 12 etudes and his 5 preludes. If you want a little 6-string inspiration today, head over to classicalguitarrocks.com.